For centuries, the story of America's discovery has been told in a simple way. In 1492, Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic and reached a new world. But that story is incomplete because nearly 500 years earlier, another group had already made the same journey, without maps, without modern instruments, and without any knowledge of what awaited them on the other side. They were the Vikings. Long before European empires, long before global trade routes, Norse explorers sailed west across the North Atlantic, moving from island to island, farther than anyone thought possible at the time. And unlike legends or myths, this is no longer speculation. Archaeology, carbon dating, and modern science now confirm that Vikings reached North America around the year 1000 AD, centuries before Columbus ever set sail. But their story is rarely told in full. Who were these explorers really? How did they cross an ocean that most of the world feared? Where exactly did they land, and why did they disappear? The Vikings left no lasting cities in the Americas, no kingdoms, no written records preserved on this side of the ocean. Instead, their presence survived only in ancient Norse sagas, stories once dismissed as exaggerations or fantasy, until science caught up. In this video, we'll follow the real journey of the Vikings across the Atlantic, from Scandinavia to Iceland to Greenland, and finally to the shores of North America. Not legend, not myth, but evidence. And by the end, you'll understand why the Vikings' arrival in America didn't change history, yet still managed to rewrite it. When most people imagine Vikings, they picture violent raiders, horned helmets, burning villages, and endless warfare. But this image hides something far more important. The Vikings were not just warriors, they were explorers, shipbuilders, and master navigators. Between the 8th and 11th centuries, Norse societies in modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark lived in a harsh environment. Rocky coastlines, long winters, and limited farmland forced them to look outward, toward the sea. And so they did. The Vikings developed longships unlike anything the world had seen before. These ships were light, flexible, and fast. They could sail in open ocean, survive powerful storms, and land directly on beaches without ports. More importantly, Vikings navigated without maps or compasses. They relied on the position of the sun and stars, the color of the ocean, prevailing winds, migrating birds, and even the smell of land carried by the air. Some sources suggest they may have used sunstones, crystals that helped locate the sun through clouds. This knowledge allowed them to travel astonishing distances. By the year 900, Viking ships had reached Britain, Ireland, France, the Mediterranean, and deep into Eastern Europe. But their greatest achievement was not east or south, it was west. Slowly, deliberately, the Vikings began crossing the North Atlantic, not in a single leap, but step by step, using islands as gateways into the unknown. And this westward push would eventually carry them farther than any European civilization had ever gone before. The Vikings did not reach North America by accident. They moved west in stages, using a chain of islands across the North Atlantic, each one pushing them farther into unknown waters. The first major step was Iceland. Around the late 9th century, Norse settlers reached the island after hearing reports from sailors blown off course. What they found was a harsh but livable land, volcanic soil, grazing areas, and access to the sea. Iceland quickly became a permanent Viking settlement, not just a stopping point. It developed its own laws, assemblies, and written traditions, including the sagas that would later preserve memories of Western lands. From Iceland, the Vikings pushed even farther. Around the year 985, the explorer Eric the Red was exiled from Iceland after violent disputes. Sailing west, he discovered a massive icy land and named it Greenland, a deliberate attempt to make it sound appealing. Despite its name, Greenland supported several thousand Norse settlers at its peak. They built farms, churches, and trade networks that connected them back to Europe. But Greenland was more than a colony. It was a launch point. From here, the open Atlantic stretched westward, and beyond it, land that appeared in stories and rumors brought back by sailors. The distance from Greenland to North America was still dangerous, but compared to crossing directly from Europe, it was now possible. And once the Vikings had a base in Greenland, the final crossing was no longer a question of if, but when. Sometime around the year 1000 AD, Viking ships sailed west from Greenland into waters no European had ever mapped. According to Norse sagas, the journey began when sailors spotted land far beyond the horizon, a place of forests, rivers, and wild grapes. They called it Vinland, meaning land of wine or land of vines. One of the most important figures in these stories is Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red. Leif's voyage was not a desperate gamble. It was a calculated expedition built on years of westward exploration and growing confidence in Viking navigation. The sagas described three main regions: Helluland, a land of flat stones; Markland, rich in forests; and finally, Vinland, the most fertile and promising of all. For centuries, historians debated whether these stories were exaggerations or pure fiction. There were no surviving maps, no European records, no visible Viking cities in the Americas. But in the 20th century, that skepticism collapsed. In 1960, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Norse settlement at Meadows on the northern tip of Newfoundland, Canada. The site contained unmistakable Viking features: longhouses built in Norse style, ironworking evidence, and artifacts dated to around the year 1000. For the first time, the sagas were no longer just stories, they were evidence. The Vikings had reached North America, not briefly, not accidentally, but deliberately. They had crossed the Atlantic, landed, built structures, and lived there, even if only for a short time, and this discovery changed history forever.
For decades, Meadows proved that Vikings had reached North America. But one major question remained: when exactly were they there? Traditional archaeological dating could only narrow the timeline to a broad range around the year 1000. That was impressive, but modern science would soon do better. In 2021, researchers made a breakthrough using an unexpected source: a massive solar storm. In the year 993 AD, the Sun released an intense burst of radiation that struck Earth, leaving a unique signature in tree rings worldwide. This event created a sharp spike in carbon-14, a marker that scientists can identify with absolute precision. Wood samples from Viking sites in Newfoundland contained this exact carbon spike. By counting the growth rings from that moment outward, researchers determined that Viking activity at Meadows occurred in 21 AD, not approximately, not roughly, exactly. This discovery removed any remaining doubt. The Vikings were in North America 471 years before Columbus set foot in the Caribbean. It also confirmed something important. The Vikings didn't just stumble onto the continent once, they returned. The cut marks on the wood showed metal tools, tools indigenous populations of the region did not use at the time. This confirmed Norse presence beyond coincidence or drift. Science had done what sagas could not. It transformed ancient stories into measurable history, written not in ink, but in atoms and time itself. And yet, despite this extraordinary achievement, the Viking presence in America was surprisingly brief, which raises a final and crucial question. If the Vikings crossed the Atlantic 1,000 years ago, who else might have reached distant shores and vanished without a trace? Because history remembers winners, but archaeology remembers everyone.